The next session coming on is how the currency journey takes OOH to growth destination. We now welcome on the stage Mr. Charles Parry-Okeden, co-founder and global CEO, Executive Channel Network and Independent Chair, OMA MOVE Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, taking this session forward as you put your hands together to welcome on the stage Mr. Charles Parry-Okeden. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Well, firstly, I would like to say thank you very much for inviting me to India to come and talk to you today. Of course, being an Australian, being an Aussie, I thought I was going to come and talk to you about cricket, but I've been reminded that I'm in fact here to talk to you about audience measurement. So while I was on the plane, I was thinking about, you know, are there any comparisons we can make between our cricket teams, our cricketers, and outdoor media? So the first thing that I would say to you is if you turn up to a client meeting as a medium without audience measurement, you're turning up to a cricket match without a bat. Yep. The other thing I would say, and let's think about Virat Kohli for a second. I love Virat Kohli. I mean, what an incredible competitor, what focus. And since Virat was a little boy, he had one aim in life, yeah? He wanted to play cricket for his national side. And to do that meant he had to compete every step of the way. And not only is he competing against the other teams, but he's competing within his team. Think about that. Because he's trying to get to the peak. He's trying to fulfill his ambition, which is to get to the national team. But then what happens? He's incredible, he gets to the national team, and then we ask him to do something different. We ask him to stop being the competitor that he's been when it comes to the people that he's playing with. Because there comes a time where it's more important to be a team member than an individual competitor. Because what we know is a champion team will always beat a team of champions. I'm sure you're all expecting that slide at some time. So I put it up front early to get it out of the way. But it poses an interesting question, yeah? And that question is the Indian outdoor businesses, are they behaving as a team? Because as we've heard from Tom, your competitors aren't in this room. Your competitors are the other media, and there comes a time where you need to work together as a team to grow and be successful. So what I'd like to do is introduce you quickly to my team.
Ladies and gents, this is the moment you could afford. Searching in the dark.
So hopefully what you get from that is a couple of things. One, the Australian outdoor market is a very dynamic market. And also we're in a very fortunate position in that we've been able to consolidate all of the operators in the market into the one association. So a quick Aussie snapshot. The industry is in a very healthy position. So in 2023, we had net revenue growth of 12.2% to a record $1.2 billion. So far in 2024, we've got net revenues of 8% growth, and that represents the #1 growth across all channels in the Australian market. As Tom mentioned in his presentation, we have, if not the highest, one of the highest penetrations of digital revenue as a percentage of our total out of home, which is nearly 75%. We are the number one most service-orientated and proactive channel in the market. And most importantly, or certainly very importantly, and growing in importance, we are ranked number 2 from the buyers in terms of ease of planning and buying, second only to social. And of course, the Australian cricket team are the World Test and One Day champions. So I'm going to talk a lot about MOVE, and those of you that don't know, MOVE is our industry currency in Australia. And what I want to talk about quickly is how that's been the catalyst for so much growth. What steps we adopted to get widespread adoption of this currency within the market. How has that evolved since we launched? What's the perspective on the upcoming launch of MOVE 2.0, which I'll talk a little bit about, and then what steps we think that India might be able to take to, ultimately achieve a single currency. So the Australian journey began back in 2010, and it was a fairly simple conundrum that we were faced with at the time. As media owners, we want more revenue. Wow, what a surprise. But the buyers were saying to us, sure, but if you want more, then you need to give us more proof, okay? And what we also know is that the advertisers needed more proof, more data, more ways to provide to their boards that they were getting a return on that investment. So what's clear in this equation is that audience data is the connection, is the way that we're going to be able to do that. So we launched in 2010 the never-ending journey of audience measurement, and it did a lot of things. As Tom talked about, it enabled us to consolidate as an industry like we had never done before. For the first time, we began to speak with a common language. And funnily enough, that made it much easier to sell. It also made it much easier to buy. We brought science and we brought credibility to a sector that for many years had really been thought about as a bunch of cowboys. It enabled us to update the market with audience insights. And one of the great dynamics with our medium is our audience is growing through urbanisation, and we were able to demonstrate that consistently as a consequence of audience measurement. It also gave us a purpose, a renewed purpose as a sector. It gave us a voice. All of a sudden, we're sitting at the big table, okay? We're sitting at the table with digital, we're sitting at the table with television, magazines and newspapers. It really legitimised our offering in the market. And it gave us a reason to engage with the market. And there's nothing more powerful than being top of mind with buyers. But what we're often looking for is a legitimate reason to have those conversations. And audience measurement is certainly at the top of that list. And it completely changed the buyer perception of the medium. We didn't change the medium. Nothing about the medium changed, but the perception changed enormously. But what were we after? We were after growth. And I know Tom's already stolen this slide. This slide's used very often all around the world. And the simple answer is yes. Absolutely. And I've got an extra layer, Tom, which you didn't have, so something new to talk about. We talked about, is this going to drive share growth? Well, we're at 6% in 2010, and by 2019 we're at a 14% share. That is scoring a lot of runs. So if we look at the key milestones in that journey, when we launched, of course you're not going to launch with a system that provides everyone with everything, okay? So we launched with a system that measured mostly billboards and transit across 5 capital cities in the market. We enabled opportunity to see and what we call an LTS, or a likelihood to see, based on the average weekly movements of the population. And that was continually updated throughout the journey. So between 2011 and 2020, we were adding new billboards on a quarterly basis. We introduced new formats such as shopping malls during that time. So one thing we often talk about is measurement never ends. You never get to an end point. It's a constant evolution, yeah? But one thing we were missing, and the buyers were getting more and more agitated with us because we were missing a really important element, and that was the digital element. We weren't measuring digital signs. And we knew we needed to do that, so we started the process of developing what we call MOVE 2.0. So it's meant to be an upgrade of the existing system to enable that measurement. But we realised very quickly that that was going to be a big task. That task was going to take, anywhere between 3 and 5 years. So the decision was made to introduce what we called an interim measure, which was MOVE 1.5. So we launched that in 2021, and you can see that's been instrumental in helping the network or the sector recover from COVID. It also enabled us to introduce a whole new raft of standards and language into the medium, such as share of time. All of these things which are critical in how people are going to plan and buy outdoor into the future. The big question I get all the time is, well, who's paying for it? And I must say this question really frustrates me. To Tom's point, it's not an expense, it's an investment. And I don't have a single member in Australia that has a problem paying the fees to run and maintain the MOVE system. Because you saw on the chart, the previous chart, we've more than doubled, nearly tripled our share of spend in Australia as a consequence. So how is it funded? Well, each individual member pays their share, and that's determined by their share of the spend of the measured signs within the system. It's very straightforward. So this is a really good quote from Cathy O'Connor, who's the CEO of the largest outdoor media company in Australia called OMedia. And Cathy realises that she's not going to hit her target. She's not going to get the growth that she's after by stealing share off everyone in the room, okay? What she realises is that we need to get share off other media, and only then will we get the growth that we are entitled to and that we are ambitious for. But something's happening since we launched in 2010, something really significant right now, and that is the changes in the media landscape. The game is changing. It's digitising rapidly, and we're really trying to play into that space. All of a sudden, we're not just about awareness, but we can work through the whole funnel from, I guess, that awareness right through to performance media. But if we want to play in that space, we have to provide much more data. We need to speak their language. So as a consequence, our members have committed to $20 million to launch MOVE 2.0. And I won't go into too much detail because I could probably spend an hour talking to you about MOVE 2.0. But the big picture is MOVE 2 will measure every sign in the country, from place-based to roadside to transit, and it will provide audience data for 365 days of the year with hourly precision. Okay? So, and all of that will be wrapped up, all that 10 billion lines of data will be wrapped up into one platform which is accessible by all the buyers and all the sellers. And this platform's really important because we are building so much complexity into our measurement system. We're layering more than 100 data points to deliver on our promise to our buyers around this measurement system or upgrade. But what we need is a platform that is easy and intuitive for the buyers to understand, and that's exactly what we've done. In fact, we've had the buyers build the platform in consultation with us, and that's a really important point. This whole journey, everything that we do is in consultation with the buying fraternity within Australia as well. So you'll be able to do everything in the one place. Think about that, the buyers in the room, to be able to go into one platform and get impressions data by hour for every single panel in the country, and to then be able to determine a reach and frequency, impressions data, etc. It's definitely going to be the most comprehensive system of its type anywhere in the world. And what it's also enabled us to do is to consolidate the long tail in our market. So by introducing all the place-based members into the measurement system, as Tom mentioned before, we now literally represent 100% of media owners in Australia. And I won't go into the funding because I touched on that, but a little bit more complex given the capital contribution required, and it's underwritten by our 3 biggest members, so some real leadership there in our market, and we thank JCDecaux, O-Media and QMS for doing that. But essentially it's the same funding model where it's 100% funded by the media owners who have their sites within the system. So what are the key factors to wide-scale adoption? Stakeholder engagement. And I mentioned the buyers earlier. Everything we do is done with the buyers, okay? And I think Parvin and I were talking about Roadstar, and yes, it's in the early stages, and yes, it has its limitations. But you know what? If the buyers are in the room and they understand those limitations and understand that that's what's available here and now, you will get consensus and you will get buy-in around that system. So stakeholder engagement's important, and the governance and the structure you put around those programs. Obviously methodology, you want to make sure that it's a consistent methodology for the different formats in the different regions. Accuracy of the data, well, that's going to be really determined by what is available within your market. Roadstar's a good example of that. I'm sure if I said to Parwin, you guys need to layer another couple of 100 data sets on top of that, he'd probably pass out. Maximise the coverage. So that's what we've done in Australia by introducing all the place-based. We've introduced all the regional locations as well. So we literally are measuring every sign in the country. The cost model we've covered. Again, I will make the point, it's not a cost, it's an investment. Think about it that way. There's more than enough evidence around the world to demonstrate that an investment in audience measurement will give you a very strong return in terms of gains, share gains. And with this system, of course, comes a lot of education and training, both for the buyers and the sellers, which is a really important element of this program. But also, it's a great opportunity for you to, again, engage and talk with the sellers on a regular basis. And the reporting that I mentioned, it's got to be simple. You know, the buyers are busy people. They don't have time to understand all the complexity around how we've got to the numbers. They know the numbers are right. They've been validated because they were part of the process, but they know that they can access those numbers through a simple platform. So insofar as approaching India is concerned, and I won't go through this because I'm being told my time's up, but what I would say is start the journey, which is what you've done. That's really important. And I stand up here and I truly understand the extent or the complexity and the size of the challenge in this market. It's enormous, yeah? But you know, you've got a Mitali Raj, yeah? And you have a Sachin Tendulkar. And from this age, they had ambition. Yeah, they had a dream. And to get into their national team. And to do that is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And to do that and then become the best in the world says to me that anything is possible. And I think if there's the right people, the right leadership, with the right ambition in this room, there's absolutely no reason why India can't start this journey with a view to having one common currency for all of the media owners in this country, and I honestly believe that's possible. So the last thing I want to do is hit a few sixes, a couple of fours maybe. You won't be able to see this, but I love this bat. It's a beautiful cricket bat. And it's sponsored by the OMA. And as you'll see, I've got MOVE branding on the back here as well. And on the front is listed all of the board members back in Australia from the OMA and MOVE. And they've all signed this bat. And I'd like Parwin to come up. And what I'd like to do is present this to you, Parwin, on behalf of the leaders of the Australian industry. And I have no doubts that you'll be able to hit plenty of sixes and fours when it comes to audience measurement, and we wish you all the very best. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was, I think, with cricket and out of home, you kind of made sure sixes and fours went into everybody's heart. Everybody's noting down. And questions are plenty. We're going to welcome Mr. Praveen Badhera from IOAA to kindly join us on stage. The questions are on the app, and we're going to request you to kindly choose, according to you, the top three.
There are quite a few interesting questions here, and I was told to just look at three, and I don't think it'll be possible to just stick to three, so you'll have to spend a little bit of more time, maybe kind of keeping some more difficult questions. So I'm going to combine a few questions, okay? I'll start with Bhavna from Times OAC. Okay, her concern, one is the fragmentation of the outdoor industry here in out-of-home industry, and who is responsible for creating a common currency? Is it the media owners, is it the advertisers, or is it the agencies?
Well, I think what's important is you need a vehicle to consolidate people behind a single measurement, and that vehicle has to be, the IA or IOAA. It needs to work with work with Roadstar and develop that system together with them over time. And I understand how many media owners there are and the complexities around that. But what's really important to achieve that is if you bring the buyers in and they're part of that process, ultimately those media owners who aren't inside the tent, who aren't part of that development, who aren't part of that program, are going to miss out. They're going to see share of spend going to their competitors because they're not at the table with that measurement.
Okay, so as an extension to this, I have Nabendu Bhattacharya from Idea Cafe asking that, one, in the first phase, how much did you end up spending on MOVE? And what were the key sort of parameters on which you were able to bring around the entire lot of media owners with different media actually together?
I think the initial investment back in 2010 was probably between $3 and $5 million all up. We didn't start with every media owner, as I mentioned. We measured those things that were easiest to start with, roadside and transit specifically. And then as we developed the system and we brought in new formats, we were able to bring more media owners in. And of course, the benefit of having more media owners in the system, it aggregates that cost. So it brings the cost down for all the members to participate.
And lastly, and specifically in MOVE, okay, is it possible to measure the quality or the psychographics of the audience, or is it only quantitative? This is by Lakshan from Coral Media.
So what was that? It was quantitative versus qualitative?
Versus qualitative,
okay.
Yeah.
That's my favourite question. That's a really great question. So I think where you need to start is there's got to be one source of truth for quantitative data for the outdoor sector. One, okay? And that's what we're ultimately responsible for as a sector. Because, you know, buyers will want to add value, their value proposition to the chain, and I think in future that will look like, I guess, some qualitative measures. That may well look like a platform where they can ingest their client first-party data. So from my perspective, it really starts and ends first and foremost with quantitative data. However, in the MOVE system we do have a qualitative measure, and it's called the neuro impact factor. And we did a very big study looking at memory encoding and emotional intensity by measuring brain waves as people viewed all the different formats. So when you run a report within the MOVE system, you will also get a neuro impact factor score as well. And that's a very new and a very innovative measure, of course. And whether or not we develop that further into the future remains to be seen. But it's certainly been very well received as a very strong innovation in our market.
And the last one, okay, how do you differentiate between audience measurement for indoor DOH and outdoor DOH? This is Shahul Hamid from Add-on Move.
Sorry,
from the indoor digital signages to the outdoor digital signages, how to actually
Sure. Well, ultimately the metrics look the same. We're providing impressions data by screen by hour across every sign. There's no doubt a different type of methodology to measure, different data sets used to measure internal or place-based signs versus road signs, okay? But then, of course, that process is all signed off by all the different buyers and also the sellers in that process. So again, it's about getting consensus as a group around that data.
That's it.
Great.
Yeah, okay. So just to kind of also tell you guys that a lot of questions I've kind of ignored, because you will get these answers tomorrow as well when Pawan is here on a session specifically on this area in measurement in India.
And look, I'm here for the next 2 days and very happy and look forward to meeting a lot of you, and happy to have the conversation and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
So gentlemen, center stage, and the lucky winner is question number 3, and the name of that winner is? Question number 3. Yeah, so the third question, not the fourth.
Question.
The third question, the plump one, Huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. The check gets brought onto stage, brought to you by MSME, all these prizes. Congratulations. Congratulations. And we're going to request Mr. Praveen Vadera to do us the honors and present mementos, requesting you, Charles, to continue to be with us on stage, and inviting Mr. Tom Goddard to join us on stage. We've got a special memento for you, and we're requesting Mr. Praveen Vadera to present the memento and a beautiful group photograph. Yes, Mr. Vadera, thanking.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Charles Parry-Okeden, and inviting.
Yes, please. Sure. Thank you.
We'd love a group photograph. Requesting Mr. Tom Goddard to join us on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, President, World Out of Home Organization, Mr. Tom Woodard. Thank you very much.